Alrighty guys, so for today's topic, it's going to be a video of why I ended up choosing to go to nursing school. So without further ado, we'll get started. Okay, so I always do a little bit of a story time, so this is probably going to be a whole video on that, obviously, because it's telling you why I chose nursing school. So to begin, I have always thought that I wanted to become a doctor. Ever since I was little, they give you those little tests and stuff like that, and they would tell you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my thought was always, I want to be a pediatrician. I think it was more along the lines of, I wanted to work with children, I wanted to make a lot of money, and I wanted to just accomplish something big in my life. And I was just like, becoming a doctor is accomplishing something big. So obviously throughout my whole elementary school, middle school, high school, I thought, okay, pediatrician, maybe that's something that I want to get involved in. But the only thing was that I didn't really have a lot of experience. So it kind of didn't really pique my interest a lot when I ended up graduating from high school. But it was still in the back of my head. So I ended up graduating high school. I went to community college for 2 years. I'll link a video to the reasons why I chose community college. There'll be a video linked here somewhere that you guys can refer to. I did another video of why I ended up choosing to go to community college for 2 years. But fast forward, I went to community college. I ended up transferring to Adrian College in Michigan, and I went to school there. And when I got there, I was technically supposed to be a junior because I did 2 years, but I didn't have enough credits to be able to be considered a junior, so I was still a sophomore. But I was literally probably 5 credits shy of being a junior. But it's okay. Things work out the way that they do. So when I got there, they did this whole, claim your degree and do all this kind of, fun stuff that they have going on. So I ended up going towards pre-med, and that was something that had always sparked my interest, something that I thought, okay, I want to become a pediatrician. How do I do that? Pre-med, medical school, on and on and on. So I ended up choosing to do a major in biology because that was pretty much the most generic type of degree that a lot of, pre-meds ended up studying in their undergrad in order to be able to, apply for medical school. So I ended up choosing my degree as biology, which was a little bit of a challenge for me, only because I was working during college. I was skating. I did figure skating, so I was skating on 2 different teams. I did a synchronized team, which was like a team sport, and then I did individual stuff. So, and also going to school full time. So that was a lot. So my grades really weren't the best. I had A's and B's with an occasional probably C in there, only because the studying, I didn't have the time to really sit down and study and understand what I was learning and, what I was having to grasp the concepts of. But I did all right. I passed all my classes, I ended up graduating with my degree in biology. And my senior year, going into my senior year, they were like, okay, you need to start thinking about taking the MCAT. So I was like, great, another test. I have anxiety, how am I supposed to do these tests? And this is an 8-hour long freaking test. How am I supposed to be able to do that? So I ended up thinking, I was like, okay, maybe if I do it once, maybe, the second time that I do it, which I don't recommend this obviously to anybody that's really thinking about going to medical school. They say take it the once and that's it because, that's just how it's supposed to be done. And if medical schools see you taking the MCAT twice, they obviously want to see either an improvement or a significant improvement from the first time to the second time. They'll look at a whole bunch of different scenarios. So this one was going into my senior year of college, which let me remind you, my senior year, I ended up taking my biochem, my microbiology. I took all of the classes that I specifically needed to be able to take the MCAT, biochem, microbiology, my physiology course, all this stuff. Obviously, I needed it for that test. So when I went in, it was still, I believe, on that 470 to 520, 530, 470 to 530 scale, I think. And so obviously I only ended up scoring a 470 because I think I scored a 480 or something like that. It was still not even subpar, not even like middle range. Like middle is like 500. Like you want to do either 500 or above, because if you anything below that, nobody's gonna look at you. So I was like, okay, I need to buckle down. I need to, study. I need to figure out what I gotta do, because this test was really, really hard. I didn't really know anything that was on there, and having to go to school for the next year and do all this stuff. So I really tried to do my research. I met with our pre-med counselor, and she suggested to me, maybe you do a gap year. Also because she only had a lot of contacts and stuff with people that were in Michigan, and I was in Michigan at the time, and I didn't want to work in Michigan. I wanted to work in California. I wanted to go to school in California because that's where I live. So it's kind of like that, teeter-totter. I was like, okay, you're great, but at the same time it was like, you're only great if I want to stay in Michigan. You're not really gonna help me if I need to go back home and go back to California. So it kind of all fell on me again. So we still discussed having to do a gap year. So I was like, perfect, let's just do a gap year. I'll go home, figure out what I gotta do, study for the year to do the MCAT, take the MCAT, apply for medical schools the next year, get myself ready. And I also wanted to go home and volunteer and, help in hospitals, because I didn't have that either. Medical schools want to see that you have obviously an interest in the medical field, but they'll also ask you like, why do you want to become a doctor? And my thing was that, why did I want to become a doctor? And my sole purpose was because one, I wanted to work with children, but two, I wanted to make a lot of money. That was literally the only reason why I wanted to do it. Like, I got an interest in, the classes and like the physiology and like everything about the human body. I really did enjoy learning all of that while I was in my undergrad. So they kind of, did spark my interest like a little bit more, to give me that like, little oomph to push me towards still wanting to do medical school. So obviously they want to know, why do you want to go into medical school? One, also two, I would say another thing is that I never really went to the hospital. I never had any major surgeries. Like, I did my checkups before college, but that was still with my pediatrician. So I didn't really have like a grown-up doctor, and I was never really, knock on wood, injured like that, or never really had any problems or complications while I was growing up to, go to the doctor to develop that relationship with my pediatrician, my, personal doctor, or my personal physician, like at all. So once again, I had no knowledge of the hospital, no contacts with any doctors, like nothing. So I was like, a gap year is starting to sound more and more appropriate, because I need to get all of this knowledge under my belt. So I ended up going home. Obviously after I graduated, yay, got my degree, I ended up going home, and I was in this like gung-ho drive. I was like, I'm gonna go to medical school, I'm gonna do all this stuff, I'm gonna retake the MCAT, and all of this, I knew at the time, costed like thousands of dollars. It was so expensive. Just to take the MCAT alone is like $600. And then just to apply for medical schools, it was like $50 per application. And I had about 8 schools that I wanted to apply for. So $100, $200, $300, another $400 on top. So that was already $1,000. Not to mention that I wanted to take a course provided by, I think it was Kaplan, something like that, so that I can do well on my next MCAT. Whew. I had no money. Still broke after college. So I came home. I was working at a restaurant, serving, trying to get all of that stuff under my belt. But also I was like, I'm home. I want to do all the things that I haven't been able to do for the last 3 years with my family, with friends, traveling, doing all of this stuff that people do once they come home, and they take the gap year for these purposes. That kind of blew up in my face a little bit, I would say, because I ended up going and applying for this volunteer job. It was outside of UCLA, so I ended up doing this program, which I thought was really great at the time. I was like, this is perfect. I could put this on my resume. I'm going to be volunteering in a hospital so I can show them, and it'll be great to get to know doctors in the hospital. I could do my shadowing hours, so, I can get a reference letter maybe from one of those doctors. None of that happened. Maybe it's because I was still a little shy, and I don't like to talk to people unless I really know exactly what I'm talking about, type of thing. So like, talking to doctors and doing all that while I was volunteering was, very intimidating. So I ended up getting this volunteer job. I worked out of California Hospital in LA, and I did that probably for about a whole year, and I racked up over like 300 hours with them. And I thought it was really great. I ended up really getting to know, the ins and outs of the hospital. I really tried to get to know, you think a year is a long time. A year is really not a long time to get to know these doctors. Like, I had probably about one that I got recommended, to shadow and stuff. Really never ended up happening because of all this HIPAA stuff. All of these legalities and everything, that it was really hard for me to be able to shadow them and do this and do that. Not to mention, I was working, and like the timing and all this stuff, like it was a lot, and it was very overwhelming, and I felt so discouraged, and I just didn't really know what to do at the time. So then after that, I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't become a doctor. I ended up meeting with a PA that worked at California Hospital, and he was like, why do you want to become a doctor? He said, why don't you just become a PA, which is a physician's assistant? And I hadn't really thought about it at the time. My roommate in college kind of thought about something along those lines, and I was like, okay, yeah, like that sounds a little bit easier. I don't have to take the MCAT. I still have to take the, I'm sorry, it's been a long time since I've done any of these whatever tests. You have to take some other tests, but it's kind of like an aptitude test. It's kind of like taking the SATs for, college. So I was like, the GOEs. I think it's called the GOEs. Something like that. I don't remember. Nope, it's not GOEs. Don't listen to me. But I had to take another test. So I was like, as long as it's easier than the MCAT, I'm okay with it. So then I ended up kind of talking to, this PA a little bit more, and I was like, what are your hours like? Like, what do you do? What's going on? And the only thing that sucked while I was volunteering is I wasn't able to leave the floor that I was assigned to. So when he'd come in and do his rounds, and walk around and say hi to people and stuff, he'd let me, walk around with him for a little bit. And he gave me his name and, everything. And he's like, if you ever need anything, if you need a reference letter, if you need something, just let me know. So I was like, perfect. But now I didn't have a doctor reference letter. I had a PA reference letter. So then I had to switch everything that I thought I wanted to do, everything that I had put, my heart and soul into, everything that I had set my mind to got swapped for PA. So then I started telling everybody, guys, I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a PA, which is the next best thing. I'll still get, a decent salary. I'll have decent hours. I won't have to, maybe be on call or do any of this stuff. I'll still, be an important person. I'll still have that, that title, that's something that I can bring home to my parents and show your daughter accomplished something. Your daughter did something. Let me tell you, this was 4 years ago that I decided this. So then I started to do my research on PA. Again, I had to have patient care hours, either volunteered or paid. And a lot of these colleges that I was looking at wanted like 1,000 patient care hours. And I was like, are you friggin' kidding me? Are you serious? So that just set me back a little bit more, because now I'm like, well, now I need to have 1,000 patient care hours, and I only have 300 from me volunteering at California Hospital. So I thought, what can I get a license in? Like, what can I do that's like easy, quick, that I can get a job, that I can maybe work part-time. So I could work at the restaurant and serve part-time, and I could have another job and work part-time. Perfect. Phlebotomy. Easy enough, right? I took like not a week. I think it was probably about a month. It was about a month worth of like a course. It only cost, I think it was only like $2,000, which at the time, obviously I had already saved my money, to do medical school, to do all this stuff, and all of that went out the window. And then I saved my money to do a phlebotomy course because I wanted to become a PA and I needed patient care hours. And this was probably around like July, and I wanted to apply for the next year, and I was just cutting times and cutting, everything really, really close for me to be able to apply. So then, I kept thinking, oh, the next year, oh, the next year, oh, this. So I ended up getting my phlebotomy license and, got all of that. Cool, perfect. And I was struggling trying to find a job because I needed a job that was part-time. I needed something that was close enough, but that, would also work with my schedule and everything. And I didn't really find anything. And also I was kind of a little bit intimidated about doing phlebotomy because it was really intimidating to do like my hours that I had to do, like my certificate hours in order to be able to pass and, to take the exams and stuff like that. And I just really didn't enjoy poking people. Which obviously nursing, poking people, I don't know, I just didn't enjoy poking people for the, to get the blood and to do all this stuff. It was very intimidating because if I miss, like, they have to come back and I'm only allowed to poke them three times. I'm only allowed to poke them, like, legally only allowed to poke them 3 times, and they have to leave and come back and do it again. So that was very intimidating. So then I have just been in this slump for the past year. What do I do? Why is nothing sparking my interest? Like, I've literally tried everything. I went from doctor literally all the way down to considering nursing. And to me, not that I don't appreciate nurses and not that I don't have, a good outlook on, what they do and how important they are in the hospital. Like, they are the core of the hospitals. But also, I really didn't want to work in a hospital until I ended up going to Children's Hospital in LA. So I ended up volunteering there. And it was a whole different environment. Obviously, it's a children's hospital, so it was something that I was more used to because I'm the oldest of 8 kids. So my youngest brother is barely going to be 5 years old. And like, I'm just used to being around kids. I'm used to having that environment, that playful, that cheery, and going into these other hospitals and stuff. It was kind of just like very intimidating because I didn't like the environment. I didn't really like the people. I didn't really like the patients. It just wasn't something that I was comfortable with, which is why I kept like, reverting back. So I ended up getting a volunteer job at Children's Hospital, and I had been there for probably over a year, literally up until March, until all of this COVID stuff started happening. So volunteering there, I ended up going, through the ranks in there, and then I ended up, my last spot that I did before all this COVID stuff ended up happening was in the resource center, like family resource center. So I ended up going in there and helping them out and just like opened my eyes on everything, on, the resources and like how important like public health was. And I was like, why didn't I get my degree in public health? I literally could have helped so many people. Not that any other job is not helping, but I would have been doing something that I had a little bit more interest in because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people. I wanted to work with people. And I love kids. I wanted to become a pediatrician. I wanted to work with kids. So I was like, this is probably one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. And I ended up getting to know one of the head of the, the nursing department there. So she was just telling me when, like the ins and outs, how important and how this and how that. And I was just like, nursing is gonna be it. It's gonna be something that I know that I can, get a lot out of, something that I am more familiar with, because when I volunteered at California Hospital, I worked with the nurses. I helped pass out food. I helped, clean the patients, and I helped do all this stuff, take the vitals and everything like that. But I just didn't have like that appreciation for them at the time. I was just like, doctor, money, money, money. So I really just like glanced over them until I ended up going to Children's Hospital. And I was just like, they do so much here. And they are, very important. And they are, like I said, like the heart of the hospital. And I really didn't want to work in a hospital until I started volunteering at Children's Hospital. So fast forward to now, I am in the process of applying for nursing school so I could get my nursing degree. I already have my bachelor's degree. So now it's just a matter of getting my second bachelor's degree, my BSN, so that I can take the NCLEX, apply to become an RN, and officially start my career. 27 years old, finally figuring out what you want to do in life. It's never too late, guys. So yeah, that's my story on how I decided and came to the conclusion that I wanted to begin my nursing career and start nursing school. So my next couple of videos are probably going to be me taking you along the journey of the blood, sweat, and tears on figuring out how to apply for nursing school, how to get into nursing school, and what to do when you're actually there. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.